Live trained.
Hi, this is Katrina Howard, LPGA golf professional, and in this series we're talking all about the fundamentals of the golf swing. So to start, we're going to talk about the positions of your golf swing. You want to know what each position looks like in your golf swing, that way you know how to get there. If we haven't seen the position of impact, we can't get there. So your starting position is your address position. At address, you want to make sure that your belly button is lined up with your grip. So that would give you a nice neutral address. It's lined up with your center. That's your address position. Unless you have a different club, it changes for each club. But for right now, I'm using a 9-iron, and that's what we're going to go with. So it's a nice neutral position. As we talked about in the beginner series, you have open stance and closed stance and neutral, so we're using a neutral stance. Then what you want to look at next is your halfway position, or we call it 9 o'clock. Also very, very important. It's a huge fundamental that you really want to get down, and I highly recommend looking at this position in the mirror. So if you're at home and in your living room, a really good practice is to just have a club around. That way you could take your club and just look at yourself in the mirror, and you want to look to see that your club is parallel with either another club on the ground, or an alignment rod would work fine as well. So it's parallel to the ground, the line on the ground. It's about hip height, and my club head, if you look at the club head, it's square to the ground. So it looks like this when it's square. If I had an open club head, it would be turned towards the ceiling, and if I had a closed club face, it would be turned towards the ground. So if you want to see it this way, also very helpful. Another thing you can look for, which I like to tell all my students, if you have a nice little logo on your glove or a watch that you're wearing, you want that watch to be nice and flat and facing forward. If the watch is facing down, then that would mean that the club face is closed. And if it's facing up, that would mean that the club face is open. So again, this is very crucial. Your 9 o'clock or your halfway position, this is you setting the club. So if we can't set the club right, it could mean that you have a bad grip. Maybe you have that grip a little too much in your palms and you're not able to hinge the wrist correctly. But overall, 9 o'clock position, super, super important fundamental, so we want to get that down. Next, you want to do the top of your backswing. So from your halfway position, what I like to tell my students is once you're here, really all you want to do is kind of hinge your wrists a little more and pick up the club. If you notice, I didn't bring that club more behind my body. I just brought it straight up from there. Now everyone's backswing looks a little different, but some key things that you want to look for is that my right elbow is tucked in. I don't have it flared out like a baseball player. It's nice and tucked. One good way to figure out if your backswing is correct, because it's going to be a little different for everyone, is if you take your left hand off, you want to play around with this angle of the club, and when it feels pretty heavy and you could feel your tricep being engaged, that's a good spot for you. We don't want the club to be really vertical and feel weightless. It should feel heavy. You have to be able to feel the club head throughout the entire swing. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get it back to the ball. If you can't feel it, your body's not going to know where it is in space, and we're not going to be able to square it up. So that would be an issue, right? We want to be able to feel that club head at all times. Top of the backswing. Another thing you could look at is your angle here. If you take an alignment rod and you have your ball placed here, you just put your alignment rod in your grip like such. And this is a little bit more technical, but if you have people out there that like that, then this would be perfect. So now what I'm looking at is I have this angle, and if I drew this down, you would see that it's in line with my golf ball. So if I have this a little too outside of the ball or forward of it, that would mean that this angle here is too flat. Flat meaning more horizontal, and steep meaning more vertical. So if I have it inside of the ball, that would mean my angle is too steep. So it should be in line with your golf ball. Once again, swing it back halfway, all the way up to the top of the backswing, and that's perfectly in line with my golf ball. And then we come back to halfway, and then we'll go over impact position. So your impact position, super important. I find a lot of people don't know what impact should look like. And if you don't know what it looks like, again, you're not gonna be able to get there. So at impact, most golf pros teach that you wanna be somewhat compressing the golf ball. So you want your handle to be a little pressed forward. Doesn't have to be majorly, but you want it slightly pressed forward. That way the golf ball has some compression and it really shoots out and goes far. If we have it back here, what's gonna happen is it's not gonna go as far, it's gonna go a lot higher. So compressed, I have my chest over the ball and my center over the ball. What we don't wanna see is we don't want your center to be too far behind the ball. Wherever my center is where I'm gonna hit. So if I have my center back here, I'm gonna hit too far back, right? I need my center to be where the ball is. So that's the other thing you wanna look for. So another key point about your impact position, which is crucial, is that you really need to have your arms fully extended and locked out. It's kind of a hard habit for a lot of people to break once they start chicken winging, we call it, but you really need your arms to be locked out. Any sport we play, right? We throw a ball, that arm gets extended. We throw a punch, it gets extended. So if the arms aren't extended fully at impact, you're not gonna get full power. The other thing you wanna make sure of is that your wrist, your left wrist is nice and flat. So you don't want your wrist scooping. You don't wanna come here and try and scoop this ball. You wanna hit it with full force and have that left arm nice and straight at impact. And lastly, both feet are on the ground. A little more weight on my lead side at impact. So impact position, very important that you already started to shift your weight to the front side. Your handle's a little forward and that chest is down. You never wanna be with the chest up at impact. That's gonna create those really thin shots and no one likes those because we can't stop them too well. Now your finishing position. So you'll see in golf, there's a lot of different finishes. Just kind of depends on your swing. So there's a lot of ways to swing the golf club, and we also want to swing in alliance to our body and what it's allowing us to do, right? So I'm not going to ask someone that doesn't have shoulder mobility to get in a finishing position that's super turned and really flexible. Like, they're not going to be able to get there. So a few different ones. One basic that you want to know is all your weight should be on the lead side. That's definitely true for everyone. But you could finish with the club out here like such. Could finish with it a little bit parallel to the ground. You could finish with a full turn. Really just depends on your style and your shot and again, what your body allows. But the only thing that we want to do is make sure that at the end of your swing, you could pick up your back foot and that there's absolutely no weight left on it. So you should be able to actually physically pick it up. That's a good drill later on just to make sure that you are shifting all your weight to the front side. That way we get all your power. And that wraps up all your golf positions. So you have your setup or your address position, you have your halfway and your 9 o'clock, the top of your backswing, then you have your impact position, probably most important, and then your finishing position.
Live trained.